Hey guys, still here. Welcome to Wargame. 4v4 on Cliffhanger. And it's going to be a really interesting game, especially in the first couple of minutes. I haven't even watched the whole thing, but the first couple of minutes already had me laughing because of a couple of unusual deployments of units. And I'm only going to really be able to cover that if I keep it in neutral. So no kill lists at the end of the game, except for, of course, the scores. It's a destruction game, 4v4, targets 8,000 points, or unless, of course, you kill all the CVs earlier. Now, the game was sent in by Echo. Echo, thank you for sending in the replay. He says, I had 2 players on my side of the map. I got exceptionally lucky and had the exact counters to what they brought out. And here's where the gameplay description gets interesting. He says, I was trying an experimental Falklands deck. Heavy use of Marines, Helos, and Harriers. And the thing that he's using is UK Marines. Now, that does limit you, especially in the air tab. Because I believe that if you use the UK Marines, all you have access to are Harriers. Which, well, they're not bad aircraft, but they're a bit slow, which makes them easier to intercept. And we will see a good use of Harriers in this particular replay. Now, let's see what the other guys are going with. We got Don Healy over here, Mel Gibson down in the middle. And where Shelby is going, I don't quite know. But maybe these guys were communicating on chat, of course, and that's not covered in the replay. Let's see, we got Shelby over here, going with a couple of Leopard C2, CH-118. Always try to spawn your helicopters over a forest, because that saves them the takeoff animation. They immediately start flying. Centurion Mark 11s I would always put on the road, to avoid having them to go towards the road, and especially Centurions are notoriously slow. So starting them on the road, a longbow, start in the air. We got Leopards. Notably absent are very heavy tanks. The heavies that they have currently is the Leopard C2s. And over here, well, it's the US Marines from Echo, so he's not going to have any kind of super heavy tank. I think the best you can get in a UK Marines is the Scorpion, which is just an utterly light tank. However, the lines of sight on this map don't really favor heavy tanks. You can quickly duck in and out behind buildings, these tree lines over here, and of course the canyons make it hard to use tanks. It does make it very nice to use HGM infantry. These mountaintops, or these hilltops, whatever you want to call them, from here you have a pretty commanding view over the rest of the area. And this, for example, would be a good position for an HGM. Over here, very nice commanding position, and you can have a good look at the town down there. And of course, reconnaissance is going to be key. Which kind of reconnaissance you can use is up to you. Arguably, helicopters can do quite well, because they can do a flyby and then quickly duck behind a hill, hoping to avoid any anti-air fire. But of course, the moment that they duck behind a hill, you also lose out on line of sight again. So that would argue the favor of just using standard infantry reconnaissance. Anyway, Echo, he's going left into Delta, and he's going to do it with his UK Marines deck. So, we got the Gazelles, we got the Lynx A87s, and that's not the only thing, because there is a Harrier on the way. Now, this is the Harrier GR1. It's just 50 points, it comes equipped with 2 500 kilogram bombs, and a twin Aiden 30mm gun. It's not fast. It does 600 kilometers an hour. And he's already using it in gun runs versus Mi-8s. Now that one gun run did a whole 2 points of damage to that Mi-8. But don't worry, there are more Harriers on the way. It looks like the whole UK Marine Air Force is coming out to play. All the Harrier GR1s are out. Again, these are the same ones. And they are going to drop a lot of payload over here, right on top of these poor Gunnestroki and their Mi-8s. And here is something that really had me wondering what the fuck was going on. IL-102, classed as a heavy bomber, but here comes the fun part. It's doing a gun chase against a Harrier, and it's actually getting a couple of shots off too, seemingly doing a bit of damage to the Harrier before the Harrier evacs. But seriously, who uses an IL-102 to actually go on a gun run like that? I think it's an interesting use. I know the IL-102 can do it. I don't think I've ever used it in this particular role. And it's not the only time that he does it. He also tries to do a gun run on the longbow. And then maybe he's going to drop off over here, although they don't probably have line of sight over here. A couple of Celtics, and now the IL-102 has to disengage. For a second, by the way, I was considering naming this video Right in the Fields, as this guy is called Fields, and of course that is where Echo is going to push in. Now Echo, with his AH-7s, is in a perfect position to counter the BTR-80s and the ensuing Spetsnaz. And unfortunately for Red 4, they don't have any anti-air. So while the Lynx A87 is not a particularly good attack helicopter, I mean, it's a transport, which just happens to have 68mm rocket pods. In this case, they actually prove quite useful. They're able to do a fair amount of damage to the BTR-80As, and killing off quite a few of the Spetsnaz already, making life very, very much simpler on the Royal Marines. Spetsnaz can still be a problem, but at least there are not 40 of them anymore, just 20. And of course, Echo's Air Force is coming back. More Harriers coming in, dropping this time around on the last known position of the Spetsnaz, and the other one refused to drop by the looks of it. Now, as Echo pointed out, always have some form of anti-air. If you lack it, like this guy over here does, it's not only fields, it's also light. If you lack anti-air, then this stuff will happen. And you're gonna get wrecked by 50-point aircraft. 50 point. It's not anything special. It's not even a high-end unit, I think. They just have 3 chevrons. So what's that? Veteran? Or standard trained? They're not that good. The Spetsnaz have all been killed off, and that allows the Royal Marines to actually get a few more meters of their terrain in. And, well, I'm not sure what Red 4 is doing, but they've only scored 155 points versus 1190 on Blue 4. Red is making some very questionable choices over here, and I'll go into why. That's also part why I'm covering this particular replay. There were some really weird choices. So once I've covered, let's say, the Blue 4 attack, I'm going to reverse position, reload the replay, and have a quick seconds from disaster analysis. Why did Red go so wrong? What did they do? What should they have brought? Over here you can already see a couple of MiG-25 BMs coming in. It is 2 of these guys. I don't know why they would currently be sending in seed aircraft. Because there's really nothing that these seed aircraft are going to be detecting. Of course, they don't know that. There goes one MiG-25. The Stormers are currently working over the next. Light immediately surrenders. Maybe they're trying to free up the airspace to make sure that more bombers can come in. I'm not exactly sure. But this game has pretty much already been decided. And look at how far Blue is over here with Don Healy. Sure, there is a little bit of resistance from Modestrelki, and the Legionnaires are suffering, but immediately Wellkeep surrenders. Another Mirage comes in, dropping napalm right on top of the Modestrelki and the Spetsnaz. Normally, the Spetsnaz themselves are putting guys on fire, but now they are on the receiving end of such napalm. So, this attack is going to get thwarted very quickly. There goes Wellkeep, and that just leaves one player into the game, and that is, I think, what's his name? What? Subda? I'm not even sure if he has any units. Oh, he does have units. Where is he, though? Here. Hold on. Right. He has almost no units. Almost nothing. Couple of Grads, one Akula, and that pretty much covers it. Okay. So what went wrong with Red 4? What did they use? What did they bring? And more importantly, what did they not bring? How did they get rolled in 5 minutes? Because that's how long this game... Well, okay, the game's gonna last a little longer, but come on. They got rolled in 5 minutes, pretty much. Let's have a look. I really am curious to see what they started out with. What I did see was a fairly distinct lack of attack markers. Now, that might mean that these guys are all on Discord, in which case they probably wouldn't even need attack markers. Still, I always prefer to use them, even if I am on Discord with other people, because it just gives an easier overview. If you tell somebody, hey, I'm going to the right on Discord, you just voice use it, or you broadcast it using voice, then, okay, the right. What is the right? Is that India? Is that over here? Is that over there? Is that to the right of Gulf? What is right? And no, that's not a philosophical question. So I always prefer the use of attack markers. Now again, there is the chat feature, which I cannot see, so that might be part and parcel of what these guys are using on Red 4. For now, though, I'm not seeing anything. Uh-oh. Let's check Wellkeep for the moment. Wellkeep's going with two T80UMs, a quad stack of BMP2s, and 2 Pion. That's a big artillery unit. Lack of anti-air. It's not the only one. Because over here we have the same problem happening. See, the Mi-8T opening is not bad. I think that Light and Fields had the right idea. Because getting into these woods pretty quick with Gornos can help. Although, arguably Gornos are not the right unit to use. Because the Gornos Twilke have a medium range ATGM. At short range, ideally you'd be using something like VDV. Because their Vampire or similar slightly outdated weapon is still very powerful at short range. If I wanted to use Gorno, I would try to position them somewhere up here, where they can attack units which are coming down the road in the side. So over here I would just try to fly in with VDV. Of course those might still be coming in. We got the BTR-80s, quad stack of T-55 AMVs. I don't exactly know what he's trying to do here with the T-55s, because you could try to push them up here. If you try to push them up here, it's not going to do that much, because any ATGM unit worth a damn is just going to shoot them and pretty much one-shot them. A tank, a higher-end tank, similarly. T-55 AMVs are just not a really good match over there. So I would potentially bring, if I was on this flank, a couple of T-72s, just the base unit, and then a heavier tank. T-80UM, something to that extent. Something fast that can quickly reverse up and down those ridges. A T-72BU is good, but doesn't do it as quickly. And there's a standard T-72s to provide further assistance in case I encounter enemy infantry, because that 4HE gun, let's say you park them around here, is going to quickly make, well, very, very short work of enemy infantry. Right, so that's Wellkeep, and his lack of anti-air. Light, over on the right flank. He has 2 fobs. Mistake. I don't use 2 fobs. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 fobs. 7 fobs among 3 players. Sweet Jesus. What the hell are you going to spend 100,000 supplies on? I've seen 10v10s with fewer fobs that didn't get emptied out. So no. If you have 4 players, I'd say 3 fobs tops. And that's if you're going with more artillery. But this is just too much. Which leads me to believe that these guys are either beginners, I mean, which is fine, or that they're not communicating very properly, and that they accidentally deployed a load of fobs. Alright, what's Fields doing? Fields is going right flank. He's going with the Mi-8Ts and the T-55s. And over here you can just see again that complete lack of anti-air. And that's when both the Harriers and the AH-7s can really go to town. So this was already, at the start of the match, a recipe for disaster. No anti-air means that a couple of helicopters can wreck your entire column. Over towards the middle. Yeah, they were fighting with what? Ah, there you go. What is using artillery? The BM-21 Grad. They only fire HE. What are you possibly going to shoot at? Unless it's one of those point at enemy general direction and fire. In which case, sure enough, they could be launching salvo hoping to hit anything. There comes that Harrier that I just covered. BTR-90. No. No, no, no. Early on the match, early in the battle, you want to capture terrain. This is not capturing terrain. you want these units to be over here. Especially BTR 90s, they're going to be over here before the enemy does. Maybe if the enemy uses very quick attack helicopters or transport helos, they can get here before you. But I rather doubt it. And yeah. Left flank. Open. There's nothing there. See, they do have a helicopter over here. That's the longbow. Oh no, that's what happened to the T-80UMs. The longbow happened to the T-80UMs. Oh, these poor souls. Not a chance for these tanks. Not a one. 2 missiles, strike the lead T-80UM. Kill one. No, well keep. No, 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 no. Oof. That was rough to watch. I like the T-80UM and just seeing them die pointlessly like that. Well keep, if by some chance you happen to watch this video. If you're using T-80UMs, always try to get another unit that can assist them. And by that, I usually mean a mortar or another unit that can deploy smoke. By doing that, if you face something like a longbow, and if you're in open terrain like you are here, then you can quickly put up a smoke screen and make sure that the longbow doesn't see you. Right now, these T-80UMs died for really no reason. And that gave Gibson over here a lot of points. It cost your team a lot of points, and I mean that in the way that it's going to be hard to replace the loss of those points. Something else that I am not seeing is reconnaissance. There is no information gathering going on the right flank, nor in the middle, and especially on the left. So let's see what they... Yeah, this is of course red for. This is what they can actually see. They can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. Okay, what can Blue 4 see? Look at that. Blue 4 can see the bomber, of course. They can see the transports all the way out here. Judging by the veterancy on the transports, you can already tell that they're not Spetsnaz, because Spetsnaz would start at 4 chevrons, I believe. These guys probably are elites, so these could be VDV or Spetsnaz, anything high ranking. They can also see the MIA-Ts over there, and they can see a distinct lack of units over on this flank. So all of this is leading up to the disaster that is currently unfolding before our very eyes. IL-102 flies over. Yeah. Here comes the butchery from the units that have no interior. Also, he's trying to rush them up this road. That's risky. In a situation like this, especially if you know that there are Lynx A87s around, and I think he already saw those a moment ago, like a minute maybe, try to rush your forces through here. Because then they have a bit of cover. It might still cost you a bunch of units, but fewer. Because right now they're in the open, and the Lynx A87s just have to point and shoot. Over here, they'd have to sort of scour the woods and try to find you. And if you actually switch back to neutral, you can see there really isn't that much of resistance. There's 2 squads of Royal Marines here, 2 there, and 1 group of SAS. A couple of BTR-80s, which are being provided intel on weather fire and what to do by the Spetsnaz, could pretty quickly chew through all of these. It's the Lynx A87s that are making life very difficult. And you don't need much to take these guys down. A Shilka arguably would be a little light, because it only has 1 point of armor and would go down due to the HE the volume of HE fire. The OSA AK over here could definitely do it. Again, it doesn't have a lot of armor. Sorry, it has no armor. But 1 rocket, 7 HE. That's enough to kill a Lynx. And these Lynxes are operating in duos, which means that if you hit one, you might very well hit the other, and you could get a 2-for-1 kill. And yes, you guys are probably already writing it down below in the comment section. This was a complete steamroll. I'm not sure if this was a stacked team or not, or if these were all beginners. I don't think so, because Light is a corporal. But Light is also making some questionable choices over here, just trying to rush forward. Here comes that Harrier wing again. How much can they actually see? Yeah. They saw the last known position of the Spetsnaz and bombed that. You can see all the BTR-80s, the Scrajjet, and the BMP-3s. And no, Scrajjet, I do not consider them as anti-air units. Yes, they can shoot at helicopters at a range of 2450, but their accuracy is so bad that they are very hard to rely upon. So there's one bombing run. The second bombing run, I think, went... No, not went over there. And one of the guys... What? I'm not even sure what he's doing. Oh, now he's using his units to move left. To seal off that gap. If you're fighting over here in this sector, try to get the buildings. And ideally, just get your infantry in here. Depending on how aggressive you want to be. It's an area that doesn't, in my opinion, that is, favor any particular side. Because you could have your units pushing through here, and you can get fired upon from the hills, left and right. And you can do the same thing. You can just play defensively and use the hills here, there, and there to create a really, well, a kill zone. With, let's say, HEGMs and recon units here, HEGMs and recon units there, which can also potentially fire at vehicles as they might be coming up this, well, not road, but let's say dirt path. You don't have to attack here, but you have to bring your anti-air. Because if you don't bring your anti-air, then the enemy is going to keep bombing you, and that's exactly what happens here. Also, of course, Don has a lot more units. Don arguably could have pushed up with these units a lot sooner. I always try to favor pushing to contact, which means I keep going until I run into something. Because the farther I go, the more I can fall back. Whereas, let's say if they stop here, they can fall back to there, but you cannot fall forward. I know that sounds really weird, but the units over here, this is a good fallback position if everything goes bad. But right now they're just sitting over here and they're not contributing to the fight in any way, shape or form. So pack these guys up and bring them forward. And ideally just close to here. Because this ridge line, the enemy has to crest it. These BTR-90s at the moment are not a threat. The moment that they become over the ridge, then they're a threat. And when they come over the ridge like this, and you have one or two tanks sitting here going, hey guys, welcome on my side of the ridge, and they just get one-shotted. Just like that. One shot, one BTR-90 less, every single time. So, interesting game, interesting deployment of units, and complete lack of anti-air, just really messed up the right attack. A lack of coordination messed up the left flank. Why I showed you this replay? Well, two things. Of course, the interesting deployment of the Harriers and the interesting use of the attack aircraft, both the Harriers and the IL-102. And aside from that, I also thought that it was worth showing what went wrong. How do you lose a game in 5 minutes? It was a lack of anti-air, it was a lack of reconnaissance, and it was in the middle also partially a lack of, I think, planning. Because they just rushed into this town hoping to get there. But the T-80UMs didn't have any kind of defense against something the likes of the longbow. Which I think is, yeah, it's currently over here. It's rearming. So, let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comment section. What did go wrong beyond the things that I covered? What could they have done better? Again, painful to watch shit is shit. It doesn't help anybody. I get people from all levels of skill in my channel. Some people are really advanced, some people are just starting out. And just flaming the new guys doesn't help. Teach them, train them, learn them how to play the game. That's the only way that we can keep this community going. Which at this point is already 6 years old, starting at the Age of Red Dragon. And of course older if you also count Ireland Battle. I still want this to be a game that we can all enjoy together, instead of just having one guy flaming at the other. It's not helpful. So, again, let me know what you think these guys could have done different on Red 4 and how they could have turned this game around, if at all. Thank you for watching. I hope you found it entertaining and useful, and I shall see you guys soon in the next video.